as they say, technology. Right? Go ahead and press the red's on. Yeah. You ready? Great. Thank you. Good morning. And on behalf of Water Education for Latino Leaders, or WELL, and Assembly members Ana Maria Avila Farias and Celeste Rodriguez, welcome to the California State Capitol for this legislative briefing. My name is Victor Griego. I am the president and founder of WELL, a statewide nonprofit whose mission is educating Latino leaders on California water issues. WELL commissioned the landmark study being unveiled today. This is a seminal day. This is a disappointing day also because we are releasing a study exposing concrete data that is not good for the California water industry. But we are hopeful because you all are here, along with two members of the legislature from whom we will hear shortly. Both of them are longtime leaders in the fight of justice and equity, one from Northern and one from Southern California. Both were elected at the local level before coming to Sacramento. Both are graduates of the prestigious WELL Untapped Program Fellowship. Assembly member Avila Farias and Rodriguez will discuss the importance of the study in a few minutes. Before they do, let me share why WELL commissioned this study and asked UC public policy authorities led by Dr. Samuel Sandoval Solis to undertake it. First, a study like this has never been done before throughout California. There's never been a genuine review of women and people of color in the California water industry. There's been lots of examinations with government, education, armed services, but never in water. And yet water is such a critical issue. We use it every day, all day long. We use it at work, we use it at home, we use it for recreation. And secondly, the importance of this study is because today we're making recommendation to the legislature that we believe can increase the representation of women and people of color on elected water boards, as well as making sure that women and people of color are hired and promoted to top executive positions in the industry. It is conventional belief that California water is run by white male engineers. Well, this study will show that this belief is not far from the truth. Let me give an example. It was 8 years ago at an ACWA conference. ACWA is the trade association for California public water agencies. Al Lopez, a Latino water board member for 18 years, a former city council member, a U.S. Marine, was upset because he wasn't accepted on one of the governing subcommittees. It was his third time attempting to get on the subcommittee, not the executive board, a subcommittee. Whether it was true or not, he believed that the reason was that no one on the nominating committee looked like him. But we didn't have the hard and fast numbers back then. We do now with this UC Davis study. So thank you, Dr. Solis. We have the numbers to work upwards to ensure parity for women and people of color in the industry. Imagine if these water agencies were more reflective of the populations they serve. A couple of things I believe would happen. First, we would see better policies and programs implemented by representing the community at large. We would see leadership that is more representative of the statewide population and of the local communities to help resolve complicated financial issues, and to supply the critical political will that it's going to take to create the financial stability in these water agencies to make the challenges come true, or to the solution to the challenges. Because these financial challenges are going to require people to vote for bonds, increase taxes, increase water rates, if we're going to enact the innovative initiatives for improving an aging infrastructure. Pipes are busting every day throughout California. And very, very importantly, we would see the $50 billion industry being accessible to all Californians for jobs and economic development for small businesses. Proper representation can assure all of that. What was the slogan of the American Revolution? No taxation without representation. At WELL, we like to believe no decision-making without representation. This is a longitudinal review of the public water agencies. Further similar studies in the future will measure success and progress, as well as targeting additional governing boards, water boards, such as groundwater sustainability agencies and regional control boards. A few notes before we continue. Journalists and the public in the room today can ask questions at the end. And journalists, if you're live streaming this, you can ask questions by contacting us afterwards by cell phone or email. And questions from the audience, when we finish and ask questions, please just stand up where you are and ask the questions. I'd like to now have Assemblymember Ana Maria Avila Farias.
Good morning. I'm Assemblymember Ana Maria Avila Farias, and I'm honored to be here with you all and to be joined by my colleague, Assemblymember Celeste Rodriguez. We are both WELL graduates as well, and we had the honor and privilege to do the program together right before we got elected. So it was an amazing journey to be students in the program and to now be here as legislators together to talk about a very important issue. We're here to ask a very simple but urgent question, and it's who's making these decisions for California water and who isn't? And I think when we frame it in that way, it really ties to the report and, you know, the information that we all cannot ignore. This is groundbreaking study from UC Davis, and WELL shows that women, Latinos, and people of color and communities remain underrepresented in water leadership in the state where Latinos are over 40% and women are half the population. That gap is unacceptable in all spaces of public policy. This isn't just about numbers, it's about the consequences that communities of color suffer and are hardest hit by a failing systems of unsafe water, unaffordable rates, and the lack of access as well. The study offers solutions, greater transparency, inclusion, outreach, and leadership training to help communities step into decision-making roles. Representation matters when leadership is reflective of the people it serves, and outcomes are improved for everyone. So let's make today's briefing an opportunity for a call of action to have meaningful dialogue, to engage and understand the space that is technical in nature, but it is a human necessity to make sure that we occupy public policy around water. So thank you so much. Would also like to acknowledge other graduates from the WELL program that are here. We have from Contra Costa County, my constituent, Cheryl Southeth from West County Wastewater Management. Happy to see her here. Also with us is Alvarado Presidio, Mayor of the City of Vitalino, and also a WELL graduate. And Eddie Valero, Supervisor of the County of Tulare. And Alma Hernandez, also a graduate with us in the program. And lastly is Deborah Lucero, former supervisor from the County of Butte.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll hear from Assemblymember Celeste Rodriguez.
Hello, everyone. I am Celeste Rodriguez. I have the honor of representing. Thank you. I have the honor of representing the Northeast San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, and I am a proud graduate of WELL and super grateful to be co-hosting with you, Ana Maria, this morning. And to WELL and everyone who made this report possible and this briefing possible today, thank you. I come from a community of a failed water system. Prior to being an assemblywoman, I was the mayor of the city of San Fernando, and we had to make the really difficult choice to turn off our water system when we didn't have the ability to clean nitrates out of the water and ensure its safety for our constituents. That's a really hard choice when you represent a hardworking, low and moderate income community of color in the Northeast Valley, which I represented, and then having to import water at a premium from MWD and deciding what to do when you have to pay those costs and you have a community that can't bear increased costs to their water. And I think it's an example of some of these decisions we have to make and how important it is that representatives understand and represent their community. and I'm really proud to be from my community. I grew up in the Valley, was raised by a single mom, and I joke that my first experience with failed water system was in my own home, because in middle school, my mother became disabled and we struggled financially. And one day I got up to go to school, and in middle school, it's already a terrible morning because you have to wake up and go to school. But I got in the shower and the water was ice cold. And I don't know if any of you out there who joined us today are one of those people who voluntarily take ice plunge baths, which I know is a trend. But that was not me. It is still not me. And when it happens and you're not expecting it, it's really terrible. And I remember thinking, even until fairly recently, when I talked to my mother about this story, thinking that we didn't have money to pay the gas bill. But she explained to me, no, the gas heater was broken and we didn't have money to fix the gas heater. And it's the same sort of situation in San Fernando. We didn't have the resources for the infrastructure to clean our water, to provide it. And part of WELL is ensuring that we reflect upon our why and what brought us here and what are those stories that drive our work. But there are really big decisions being made in horseshoes like this, in cities and water boards everywhere. Hard decisions like after COVID, when people had overdue water bills, the ability to shut off their water or not. And I think that in my own personal experience, coming from my own community, being able to speak up for the households that had limited resources and the moms who are trying to take care of their kids, like, hey, there's a kid out there who needs to brush their teeth in the morning. Like, let's talk about the people. And I think that's part of just why this is so critical. We're in a time where diversity is being questioned and discouraged. And in this moment, it's so important that we have the data to prove our point and to make our argument that representation is critical. And that's why we're here today, to talk about this report and talk about how we ensure there's more diversity so everyone's represented at these tables. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Now we hear from Dr. Solis, and let's get the data. Let's get the facts. Thank you.
Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Hi everyone, welcome. Mi nombre es Samuel Sandoval Solis. My name is Samuel Sandoval Solis. I'm a professor of water resources management at UC Davis and the academic advisor at WELL. It seems that we have many WELL folks here. So let's go to the report. So all of you have the reporting here. There is going to be a test at the end of the briefing. Now, so let's go to the data. So we decided to assess representation, access, and transparency of decision makers in California's water sector. So basically, what happened is that so the agencies, the federal, the state, and the local government create policies, and think of these policies as the limits. They are the guardrails. Between those guardrails, there are agencies that have to navigate their day-to-day life. So what these water agencies do, they follow the law, they follow these regulations, but also they will, how important is this, they set water bills and set the rates. At any point, if you pay your bill this month, your water bill this month, before that, behind this, there was board members and executive staff that actually were the ones setting those prices. They will assign human resources and financial resources for maintenance and operation. They may even decide to build new infrastructure, and associated with that, there will be grants and loans. So this is how board members and executive staff affect our day-to-day life. They are the ones that are behind our water bill, how we get our water, and that we are going to get it for more reliable. So the picture that you're seeing there, so I was talking the same like you, Celeste, in some experience. Many times I get into a conference room or I get into a symposium and I'm the only Latino, right? In the water sector, when I go to these board member meetings, typically I'm the only Latino. And what you're seeing there is a picture of me presenting somewhere in Southern California, in Riverside, at a water board meeting. The people that is behind in front of me, those are the board members. Yes, there are no women in there, and yes, there is no Latino. If we take a step back, what you're going to see is that the people in front of the board members are these called executive staff, C-suite. So they can be a director of the water agency, the director of finance, the chief engineer. And now in this case, we're seeing 2 women, but at the end, there is no Latino. There are very few women. Just to have it as a reference, in this part of the state, 50% are women, about 54% are Latino, and 20% are other people of color. This can be Native American, Black, Asian, other people of color. And we don't see this representation in the decision-making body that you're seeing there. So, okay, so these are a lot of anecdotes that we have throughout our career. So how can we put some numbers to that? Basically, what we did is to assess representation, evaluate what is the access to information to become a board member, and the transparency of the decision makers, of the decision making. To have a reference, there are about 3,500 water agencies in the state. So there are a lot of water agencies. Not all of them, they are that big. So we selected the ones that were larger than 1 square kilometer. So 3 blocks by 3 blocks. And that will be about 2,000. And of those 2,000 water agencies, we sample about 35%, 688 agencies. What we did with that, so we basically went to their website, figured out what were their board members, their executive staff. We also look at and the meeting suggest board members, how the board members are related or to the people that they serve in terms of ethnicity. So we collect the census data and compare that census data with the representation of the decision makers. I will also like to thank Ramon and others. So Ramon, a lot of the numbers that you're going to see from now on, the one cranking it up. So here, these are the results. The graph that you're seeing on the left, also in here, that means that there are 50% of women on the state of California. Only 26% are represented as board members. Just to be very clear, the number, in order to achieve proportional representation, the number of board members of women have to double. And this is no different when we're talking about these executive staff positions. It is the same 24%, so there is a big gap. Now, what I'm going to tell, so this is in total, right? All the individuals. We went to each agency, and within each agency, we identify how many women are as a board members. I'm really sad to report that in 32% of the agencies that we take a look, there is no woman as a board member. So similarly, like the picture that I show you, all the board members were men. These things can get worse. If you look at the executive positions, this director of the agencies, director of finance, in 67% of the agencies that we sample throughout the state, there is no woman as an executive staff. Now, we did this also throughout the state in different regions. Things can get even worse. In the places where you're seeing that navy blue dot, actually the percentage is larger. There are regions where in 80% of the agencies, there is no woman at all as an executive staff. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there is a big gap. There is actually no woman at all on those positions. In all the regions, we can see an important gap. The one that is the best, San Francisco, in 50% of the agencies, there is no woman as an executive staff. Think of this. You go to an agency and chances are, 1 out of 2, you're not going to find a woman as an executive staff. Now, we did the same with other ethnicities, in this case, Latino and other people of color, which is Native American, Black, Asian, Pacific Islanders. And what we find out is that while Latinos represent 42% of the population in the state. There are only 14% as a board members in the water agencies. So it is only 40% their share. Things are even worse for the other people of color. Only 5% are board members of other people of color, Native Americans, Black, Asians. This is, just to be clear, so women have to double. Latinos have to triple their numbers. Other people of color have to quadruple their numbers to be on the state representation. This trend is extremely similar when we are talking about of this executive staff. Latinos and other people of color have to at least triple their numbers to be on par of the state representation. We did the same. We analyzed this in statewide. So those places that you're seeing with a red dot, that means that those are regions where Latinos are the largest population, are the largest ethnicity on that region. That means that is the majority, right? Consistently, it was underrepresented as board members. So even though they are the majority, it's not the majority on the board members of people making the decision. That yellow dot is the same for other people of color. In that region, San Francisco, other people of color are the largest ethnicity, still underrepresented. So how is that happening? So in terms of access to information, what we find out is that in only 36% of the agencies that we look, we have available instructions on how to become a board member. Think of this. Any one of you wants to become a board member of your region, chances are 1 out of 3 that you're going to find those instructions of the agency that is providing you water. And in 56% of those, it was easy to find that information. The other 44%, 45%, it was really difficult to find those instructions. There are, in only 47% of the agencies, you can see the map or what is the jurisdiction of that agency and the districts that can elect you as a board member. Well, so what are the pathways of board members? About 89% are elected, 11 are appointed, and less than 1% are volunteering. We have people volunteering for doing this work. Something that we ask, so we wanted to know how many board members have a specific background that gives them a legs up to be a board member. And how is that? So think of this. The first, we ask 4 questions. Was the current board member before work for the water agency? So he knew the water agency and now he's moving to being a board member. That was the first question. Was the board member related to the water sector? Was he a consultant, a hydrologist, an engineer that was already working with that agency and now goes to being a board member? Was the board member before work on the government or an NGO, so it knew how the government works and what is the importance, or an NGO and how to influence decisions? And the last one is, like the current board member, is it also a board member on other groups? What we find out is that 90% of the board members that we sample, the answer was yes to at least one question. Even worse, like in 34% of the members that we analyze, the answer was yes to 4 questions. So these are professional insiders. This is people that are in other board members, worked before for the agency, now are board members. They used to work in the government. They are in the water sector. So they know all the ropes to get there. Just to be very clear, only 10% of the community members are the ones that are actually able to get to a board member position. Chances are of us, like regular citizens, to be a board member, our chances are 10%. You have to be a good insider in the water to become a board member. 55% of the members actually responded yes to at least 3 questions. So in terms of transparency, what we were seeing is that 85% of the agencies post their agendas and only 2% put their agendas in Spanish in a state that are in many regions where this is majority Hispanic. There was one question, going back to Victor's comment, that I just keep thinking. So think of this. You are going to a website of a water agency, and chances are only 37% of the agencies post instructions on how to become a board member. But I'm going to all these websites, and all the board members' seats are filled. So how is it possible that we have all the board memberships filled, but there is only 33 or 37% of the instructions available? Like, how these people get there if you don't have the instructions available? Then with Ramon, we start kind of discussing this. And so what you saw, that is the woman representation, but the remaining upper portion is the men representation. This is the population of white non-Hispanic or as board members. So while white non-Hispanic are about 35% of the state's population, there are 80% as board members. And also what we know is that these are professional insiders, my friends. Like these folks, their experiences give them a heads up, a leg up on how to become a board member. And we know that because they responded yes to at least many of our rubrics questions that we ask. So what are we asking here? So basically, this is really simple. I know by now all of you will be like, oh, how can I reduce the gap, right? Like we really want to reduce this gap. How can I run to be a board member? Let's have the instructions available, right? So if we have only 37%, let's make sure that we have instructions available on how to become a board member in different languages that is easily accessible. So that's the first ask. A broad advertisement. If there is a vacant seat or if there is coming a re-election, let everyone know that is coming up. That is just democracy. Capacity building. So there are institutions that are helping to reduce the gap. So how is that? These institutions that are down there are institutions that are helping regular citizens to run for a board membership. We need to support these folks. There are other institutions like, that they are helping people to go from this mid-level career to be in the executive position. That is the program Educate to Lead. And there are similarly that is helping people that are already on the job, that are already board members, to help them out to do an improved job in there. It's just train them. So the question of I don't know how many $1 million. Why should we do this? I mean, all of us, we know that this is the right thing to do. But even better, this will help every Californian. Having people from all these different parts of the community will bring different perspectives, will bring our values, will bring our identities, will bring our cultures, so we can have improved strategies, so we can have better ideas to solve our wicked problems. It's good for everyone. This is not good only for one ethnicity or not. If we have people from all these different parts of the communities, what is going to happen is also the agency will benefit because you can get the buy-in of the community. It is not only about putting the dollars. It's also to engaging with the community and have the buy-in of the community so we can work together. If we have those two things, we can mobilize the political will. We can get the political will, my friends. What Victor was saying, it is true. So we have an aging infrastructure. This is really, some bad news, but we need to get more funds to improve the infrastructure that we have. It's not going to be cheap, and we need to have the society carrying that with us. We're going into finally sustainable water management in the state. There are difficult decisions that we're doing. You know, this goes back to the American Revolution slogan, what it came. It doesn't get old, right? No taxation without representation in our case. Really, no decision making without representation. Thank you for coming. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Solis. So again, a seminal study, disturbing numbers and facts, but a lot of work to do. So I'd like to have the assembly members comment on the study. Who'd like to go first?
Thank you so much. I think, all throughout, although the California Voting Rights Act, I mean, we're right in the midst of redistricting right now, and it really, hits the bull right in the eyes of not just in water boards, just overall in elected positions of how we have not effectively moved to get more people of color into all spaces, but in particular water. And, recalibrating how we build the pipeline so that we have good water policy, because we know the more colorful we are on boards, the more diverse conversations and different perspectives and breaking down those institutions. I personally, my assembly race is really an example of that. I'm the first Latina to be elected out of Contra Costa County, in a county with 1.2 million residents and nearly 40% Latinos. And, the fact, and it goes down to County Board of Soups, that we've never had a County Board of Supervisor Latino, to city councils. We have 19 cities, but yet, less than 10 electeds. At the time when I was elected at the local level, there was less than 10 of us in a county with 19 cities. And so I think this report just really highlights how we need to organize better. We need to invest and make the desire of public service to volunteer, because most of these positions, also, those are obstacles for people. They're not paid, they're volunteer. And so my life is very different as a 20-year-old versus a 30-year-old versus a middle-aged woman. And if we look at the board, not beyond it being predominantly white male engineers, it's also a fluency that these boards meet at noon or in the morning when young professionals are at work. Those are obstacles for people who are interested, or who are even people of color who are engineers. It's a deal breaker of not being able to leave their job. I've always fantasized, and maybe it won't be a fantasy now because I'm in the legislature, that we should encourage public service. We should encourage jobs. If there are boards that have to meet during the day, that that it is part of companies' public service, that they allow people to still retain their salary so they can go volunteer and contribute. That's one way to get more people of color engaged, is when it's incentivized by their own employers, that their employer's mission embodies public service. And when there isn't the political will from employers, then the legislature should chime in and say, maybe we need to have board meetings. It's not accessible to not only working people, but the community and the public. As you go to these meetings, and who's in the audience? We're talking to ourselves. No one is there because people are living, people are working, taking care of their children. And so when we remove those barriers of accessibility to be even a participant, because when you become a participant, then you have a desire to run and say, hey, that isn't right, because you're able to see the public's business, but you're not able to see the public's business because you're at work or attending to your family. And so, as I say here often in the legislature, we keep trying to mold ourselves to an outdated model. We forget this country was founded by white men. It was not with women there. It was not with people of color. But yet we're institutionalized, that we keep operating our government in an outdated system. So maybe it's time that we assess how we recalibrate, how we open up and cast the net that is more inclusive than an outdated system.
I'd like to introduce Senator Carolina Mendez. Thank you for joining us.
I couldn't agree more. I think that people, though, don't even know it's an option. And if you don't see the opportunity, or people that look like you in the opportunity, how do you ever see yourself being that person? And when you mentioned that you've gone to a conference and you go to spaces you're doing Latino, I went to a conference, I think it might have been Aqua. I went to a conference on behalf of Well. And when I walked in, I had a moment and I had to like reflect with Paul where I felt like I was the only Latina in the room and the youngest person in the room. I'm also the youngest Latina in the state assembly, but I have amazing colleagues. The Latino representation, people of color, the representation that's been so intentional in the state legislature, you can see it, you can measure it over the years. So we have to be intentional. We have to have people who are going to blaze trails, but not only that, actually pass the torch so that we can actually start to change these numbers.
Okay, open it up for questions. And if you have a question, is that the microphone? Okay. Or they can stand up. You can just stand up from your seat. No questions? Clear?
And
Yeah.
Move it down. There we go. There we go. Maybe not. My voice is soft. So, good morning and gracias, Dr. Sandoval Solis. I don't think that the results are surprising, and thank you for the charge to us. So, for those of us who are already on water boards, give us another charge. What would be your exact charge for those of us who are in those positions now?
On water boards, you're a
On
member of
water
water board. Okay.
boards.
Yeah. What would the recommendation be?
I mean, go back to your website. Make sure that you have instructions. Make sure that whenever there is a re-election or election coming, that it is announced. I think Celeste, you mentioned it. Like these are not good times to speak up, but I think we just need to continue speaking up. And that one, I think some of us right now, unfortunately, we have the luxury of doing it. But I think we just need to do that. Also go to Celeste and Maria's that. So we are in 2025. I want you to think about this. We're in 2025. The first Latina in Contra Costa. Some of those stepping up into a room and being the only one on a water meeting as a Latina, right? My friends, this is 2025 in the United States. It's to me sometimes it's just like I need to take a deep breath of it. What I'm trying to say here is that yes, sometimes we're the first ones there. I hope that we're not the last ones. And how can we make it this easier? And for me, is like make sure that we left the doors, the instructions, everything open, so we are not the first.
The second part to that is, are we able to, because what I would like to do is highlight this report. So what steps do we need to do to make sure we can do this in our area?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
What steps do we need to do to make sure we can highlight this report and the results of the report in our area?
Yes, thank you. There's two strategies that we're thinking. Three. Number one is working with the legislature to look at recommendations. And one of the things that we learned from the process was the information of who's elected is not accessible at the Secretary of State level. You can find out who the city council members are, the school board members, the county supervisors, but you can't find out of the school board, of the water board. So the staff, the research had to go district by district by district, looking at websites, calling up. So that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and resources. So maybe there's legislation that says each county registrar should report after the election of water district official, board members to the Secretary of State. And so now there's a comprehensive county by county list of who's elected and how you contact them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one. So that's just one example of working with the legislature on recommendation. The second thing is we are going to take this to local media. We'll be looking at going to Fresno, going to Los Angeles. So we're going to get this out further into the media. And then the third one, particularly, We've got relationships and allies with CMUA. We have Aqua. We have other organizations that we can share this information and say, listen, this is what our research shows. What can we do collectively to make changes? How do we promote women? How do we promote people of color? How does that work? Now, WELL is working with KWEF and CMUA on a major program to do just that. To bring folks into the water industry, and those women and people of color in the industry, how do they promote up? So we need to be more intentional about making these numbers better.
And I'm going to just go back to the civic engagement of what we can all do regardless. I always tell people, and in particular with my own journey, that you don't need a title to be civically engaged. And we're failing in that front for people of color. And as a Latina woman, a Mexican American, I didn't grow up in politics. In fact, it wasn't until I was a young adult that I started showing up to spaces that I felt were important to show up. And so I think our K through 12 needs recalibration of the importance of being civically engaged because of our interest, right? That you have to be an ambassador and an advocate of our public interests. And staying at the world, this building, I always tell kids, what you see around you, someone created. It did just pop up. And so your thoughts, your words, your voice is important in all these spaces, even if you think it doesn't impact you. I mean, we just heard my colleague's story about her childhood in water. We have to connect those connectivities. So we need a lot more, as leaders, as elected officials, more work in K through 12 with our community partners to connect those dots. So as we have young adults come into the space, that they have a desire to serve, to show up and be a voice. And I think as people of color as well, we have a lot of work to do to elevate each other. You know, right now we have the umbrella of people like, what is DEI? You know, that's taking my job. And people see it in elected roles as well. When you say there's something wrong with all white men being engineers, what's wrong with that? They went to college. They're qualified. You're trying to take them away, a qualified person, to bring an unqualified people. I hear that all the time when you bring up the qualifications or the desire of representation. And it's like, we're all qualified to have a voice and to speak for our communities. We all have different words and expressions. I don't need a degree to show up and represent the community and be a voice for marginalized community members. And working together as communities of color, that I've seen, especially in my county where we don't have a lot of people of color, that if it's a Latina in the race, then maybe the Black community organizes against, or if it's the reverse or API, and we're much stronger together. And we haven't learned that quite yet. And we have endless examples where we aren't able to create unity, to organize, to create representation. We end up with this outcome that's really sad in a state that between Latinos, API, and Black, we're over 50% of the state population, but yet our boards and elected spaces aren't reflective of the demographics. And so I think there's a lot of recalibration, and us as legislators, as one of the state officials, we also have a responsibility of how we pull back. I call the political ladder, that you can't just be the first. You walk in the room and yes, it's, it blows your hair back, and you have to navigate these very unfriendly spaces as a woman, as a woman of color. But then as you navigate it, that you always have your hand down on that ladder to start bringing others up. And many of us, we start to simulate and be complacent. I made it here, and forget that building that bench still needs a lot of work. And we have that responsibility. And to Cheryl's comment, I pride myself not on my legislation, but when people ask me, how many people of color or women have you helped get elected? That to me is how I judge myself, of what have I done to create more space for people, whether it's my journey or different boards. So I think there's a lot to do here as electeds and non-electeds.
Thank you. Any others? I'll go stand up. Augustine X.
Yeah. My question is regarding for equity. We know that sometimes problem solvers needs to involve, it's a race or ethnicity. In order to get things solved, you need to go to the roots. So without representation, you're not able to solve problems to be equal or just. So I believe the ask is for the Assembly to pass a bill that will mandate to these water boards to be open and accessible to all the community members. I think that would be something that would be the ask.
Congratulations, Dr. Solis, and to your team. This report, the good and the bad is that this report, does shine the spotlight on the disparities. But I think that if you were to look at any other public board outside of water, we'd probably have the same type of results. So it just highlights the lack of representation across all boards in California. I'm thinking, Assembly Member Farias, you mentioned about literacy in water. I think one of the biggest barriers is that individuals who may have an interest may not have the training or the competency in themselves in terms of what is water fluency, what is water literacy. And so some type of ability to train community members on the basics of what is a board responsibility. I've seen interest in community organizing where there's been an outreach, but the community does not step through the door. And I think that it is because they don't have the support to know that there is a bigger, broader audience there that's supporting them, that will help train them. And I think that if we can coordinate with universities, state agencies, and other public water bodies in order to really get that fluency and water literacy out to the communities, we would really help begin that process of training. Because it does, as Mayor Alvaro mentioned, it does come from the roots. And I think that this is just the start to show that, and we can all be part of that nurturing. Thank you.
Great. Comments on those? Celeste, Andrea? Comment?
No, I appreciate your feedback, and I actually wanted to add to your to-do list, actually to everyone's to-do list. As we talk about closing these gaps, all of you are here today because you have an interest in water or you work in this space. And just by existing, you can be an inspiration, especially as a woman of color on a water board. And so I think making sure that you're intentionally creating spaces where you're talking to maybe young women of color or just people who are never represented on these boards, to explain to them like what you do and why you do it. And maybe that water literacy piece, like a Water 101, it can go really far in showing people what's possible and us really flipping the script on this.
And I'll just add to, I don't think it was by fluke that Celeste and I got to be colleagues and that we did the WELL program together. Water literacy is so critical. My background was in housing and community development, and that journey that we spent together was an eye-opener. And I think just the two of us together, and if I recall incorrectly, let me know, Celeste, but I remember both of us feeling very inspired and such a huge obligation that we both said, whatever our journey is in the next 12 years, it has to be, sailing with the water. And we have to do something because what we saw throughout the state of California was heartbreaking. It was shameful. And everything that was interweaved into that was people of color and that there was no voice. And so we have to be the voice here in the legislature. And we can't claim ignorance or we don't have time. As two Latinas that went through this program, I feel a social responsibility to figure out with our community what are the next steps, not to only address what we saw in the program of the injustices and the inequities with water, but also work in a paradigm that people forget that when the water rights were created 100 years ago, it was against indigenous communities. It was against, people of color. And again, we're operating on water rights that were created in a historical time that was against people of color. And so we always have to remember that as we lean into this space. But I think leadership from the legislature, it's a very proud moment because this is, a historic time that we have the most representation of Latinos ever in the legislature. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be leaning into this space and very hard and being able to reach back into our communities and really craft an action plan and work with our colleagues in the WELL program and the professor of, the doctor of working in this space. So I think there's a lot that we can all do beyond walking outside of here feeling inspired that we have the data and we have the people power to really make transformable change in this space.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
I was just wondering, after this study, if the legislature were to pick up a policy that would state that all water agencies need to be cataloged with the Secretary of State, that would obviously make research like this much easier instead of having to call each and every water district. Yep. However, are there plans to do something beyond what you have done now?
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. So, yes, we're doing it. So we are now evaluating on the 2024 election how many people who were voted out, who were elected. Preliminary results shows that basically it was a swap. So we have exactly the same number of women because some of them, they went out of office and some of them came, but the numbers doesn't change. But we're doing this kind of re-election. We are also doing it now for Sigma. So we're going to be doing an analysis on Sigma and the people on that space, or the decision makers on that space. Now, I want to go back to Ana Marie's comment and Isita on the education. So there are many of us doing this work of trying to, what are our way to serve? And some of us is just to provide the knowledge and make sure that knowledge is available to everyone so everyone can do their fights. That's good. The institutions that I mentioned here, so this, speaking of supporting education, there are a lot of good institutions doing great work on helping people to run for election. Let me share with you some of the biggest challenge that I'm seeing here. So at any given moment, I'm thinking that we have 10,000 board members. So think of it, we have 10,000 people making decisions of water. If all these institutions train, let's say 100 people, and that 100 people got elected, that will be about 1%, moving the needle 1%. So all of these institutions working together, and they say like, okay, let's reduce the gap of women. Everyone, recruiting women, let's go there, train them, and then make sure that they get elected. We move the needle 1%, and the gap is 25%. 1% in a year, and the gap is 25%. It will take us 25 years. The issues that we have are systematic. That's what you were mentioning of, Ana Marie, of allowing people to go to these meetings and still get their paycheck. Amazing. Like, otherwise, if we don't get rid of those barriers, then we will still have this gap. Systematically, the people that can go here is people that have a good paycheck or that have a business that they can attend it, or that they are retired and they can attend it. There is no other way that we can get there. That's why we have only 10% of the community there. What I'm trying, so education is good, supporting these agencies is good, doing the service that you're mentioning. We're asking a lot for our communities. We're asking people that have middle, low income to actually also on their time out to go and do all this service. So anyway, this is some of the challenges that I'm seeing, and we are elaborating on those.
What you were saying. So in my county, I'm the first Latina mayor in my city and in my county. But the elected officials are directly elected then to the boards. So just myself, I sit on a wastewater board, my local city water board, my regional county board. So sometimes it's not directly, but to you're saying is, but I noted every single staff, they're all white. And if there's a female, there's two of them that are female, but they're white females. And so my wonder is how we carry this work, not only about the electeds that are going into the situation that I'm in, right, that are directly elected to their city councils, but then serve on water. But then how are we creating greater transparency of what's happening in these boards? None of these boards are required to have any Zoom access or public access that's virtual. We brought it to our local city one. It's split between city council and the regional irrigation district. We failed to be able to pass access to just providing Zoom so people could actually see the decisions because our regional irrigation district voted no, so we couldn't carry the required majority vote. So we're seeing these issues even so. Talking about policy, it's like greater transparency about access to the decision making that's happening. So even being able to require that there be Zoom access or virtual access to even see the decision making, I think is
and reaching out for the community. And that is extremely important, and Lucero also mentioned it. We need to have this in a specific website or in a clearhouse, because basically right now, and I want to make sure that you know, so we have 3 of the interns that are actually collecting the data here. Hi, Joan, Shiwen, Stella there. We have also others, Javiera, Stephanie, helping out with the report. These are the angels behind. These are the people that are doing all of this. And what you're mentioning is true. They are the ones collecting the data. And my God, it's really difficult. Write the name of the people on the agendas so we can actually trace it back. Otherwise, it's really difficult.
So the other thing I heard, you're basically saying that these appointed bodies are spending millions and millions of public money with no accountability, no transparency, and suggesting how we do. Okay, thank you. That's great.
And I think also that she brought up too that, you know, we all learned how to conduct public meetings during the pandemic because of the situation. There was no reason for government to dismantle that accessibility. And over 75% of government entities ended the Zoom meetings, which was the most engagement people had. And that's really sad that we probably should revisit that we should demand that the technology's there and they invested in it.
Question?
Just a comment, Victor. It's good to see you, Paul. Good to see you. Thank you for your work on this. My name is John Tang. I'm with San Jose Water. We serve about 1 million residents in the greater Silicon Valley metro area. I just want to make a comment. Victor, you know Tony Estremera sits on your board, very diverse board. I don't think diversity is an issue in Santa Clara County. I don't think transparency is an issue in Santa Clara County, but where I do have a comment is this, and I know my good friend Marta is here. When that agency or even other elected offices run unopposed, their names don't appear on the ballot. You can't have transparency that way. Nobody knows. I mean, a lot of people that I talk to, nobody knows that they're even represented by an elected board because their names don't appear unless there is a challenger. And so, having said that, for transparency, having said that, I know the other side of the coin for their agency is the fiscal impact of it, because every time you have an election, it costs potentially, $1 million to have it run. So there's a balance there, and I don't know where that balance is, but I just offer that as a comment.
Thank you, Don. That's, yeah, back there.
Hello and good morning. My name is Eddie Bolero. First Latino to serve on the Tulare County Board since the county was founded in 1852. So again, greater representation needed in the Central Valley. I will share that there is a policy, a California policy, that allows small rural water districts to bypass having a website for public information. And so how do we balance transparency and accountability with the lack of resources from these boards to inform the public?
Thank you. Anyone comment?
We legislate.
Yeah, there's that. Thanks for the recommendation, Eddie, with the question. All right. Any other question? hold on, Cheryl. Anybody else before Cheryl?
I just want to acknowledge, right, as policy moves through this process, Anna Marie and I are going through this for our first time. Things are always like cut out. There's always amendments when it comes to fiscal costs. We're in a really interesting, terrible financial situation. So you lift up a really important point, how we have to look at these policies that are passed, because sometimes these carve-outs are detrimental to greater efforts of transparency and representation, and investing these dollars and ensuring that these communities are supported so that they can do the same thing as others is really critical. But I do want to acknowledge it's a different time that we're in, and so that's why the fight and engagement with others is so important. And I also want to just recognize, when we were in a better financial climate, I want to just recognize Senator Caroline Menjivar is here with us today. And when San Fernando experienced the nitrate situation that I shared, we needed money to get back on our own water system and remain water independent. And it's resources that she secured that made that happen. So I just want to recognize her for being here today. And as long as we have representatives who recognize these issues and we can fight for the resources, we can make real change.
Okay, we've got to wrap up now. Cheryl, we can get your question afterwards, but I'd like to just have the Assembly members just wrap it up with 1 minute each.
Thank you all for coming. I look forward to collaborating and continuing my journey with WELL and my colleagues in the legislature, and truly committed to creating a space for all of us to amplify our voices and leaning into that space and showing leadership in that. And developing a master plan of, we got a great report, what we're going to do with this data, and I think we came up with 6 actionable things that we can actually do in the legislation to change around California Voting Rights Act.
Access to clean water isn't a reality across our state, and it's an environmental issue, it's a social justice issue, and as much as we make progress in some communities, we're not making progress in other communities. And it's a bit of what the Assembly member shared. We've traveled across California. We've seen the injustice. We've seen people who have arsenic in their water and they still have to shower in it, and the impacts that has on their physical health. It's not okay, and it's something that we all have to come together to address. And it's so important that these decisions being made about ensuring we have safe, affordable, accessible water have representation from the communities they serve. So thank you for creating this report and giving us a tool to make that happen, and all of you for being here today.
Just once again, no decision making without representation. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to adjourn to a reception across the street at Cafeteria 15L, Cafeteria L. So everyone is welcome to have lunch and celebrate this seminal day. So that we can move forward with some very, very positive solutions. So thank you.
Gracias.
I would like to recognize another WELLO. Dr. Jag, please stand up. Thank you for being here.